Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Henka Boys. Shaun is here.
He is here.
As always. 8 episodes, Shaun. Did you ever think we'd make it this far 8 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Same. Yeah. It's not a particularly hard milestone to hit. And
No,
it's not
like
even really a
800.
milestone.
800. Well,
800.
everything's a milestone. Yeah. When we hit 800, we can have a proper celebration.
Yeah, if we remember that will be in how many years?
13, 14 years, something like that.
14 years' time. We'll be old men. Well, middle-aged men.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
that's
late
not a good
middle-aged
thought,
men.
actually.
Yeah, right. So today's episode is about a very serious issue, Shaun.
Yes, we're only dealing with serious issues from now on, listeners.
Yes. Just a quick disclaimer.
No more frivolity about bridges and dirigibles. Serious from now on.
Yeah. A quick disclaimer. We're not actually experts in anything. I mean, Shaun's kind of an expert in Victorian nonsense, which has nothing to do with today's topic.
Yeah.
But apart from that, we're not really experts in anything. We're going to be talking about climate change today. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting time, I think. What are you drinking, Shaun?
What am I drinking? Well, I'm not actually sure, but I may have already been drinking this on a previous episode. The more I look at it, I think no. This is Chianti by Mondelli.
Not the same bottle, though, right?
No, not the same bottle. No.
Good.
Opened this one earlier today.
Right. What did you rate that before?
I like it. What did I rate it before? That's a good question. I've got no idea. I'm not even sure. I know I've drunk this bottle before, but I'm not sure whether it was on the podcast. You see.
Right. Well.
But I'm really enjoying it, and I don't think I've given much as high as I intend to give this. So,
well, last week you did give the Ruby Port from Sainsbury's a 10 out of 10.
I did, and I don't regret it at all.
So I'm not sure how much higher we can go from that point.
No, I mean previous scores. Anyway, yeah. So I like it. It's very salty. I do like a good salty Chianti.
Okay.
Yeah. Tastes like sweat.
Interesting.
And it's delicious with lasagna and fava beans and
it would be good with lasagna. Yeah.
I think I'm going to give it an 8.
Very good. Very good.
I think it was about $7.50.
Yeah.
So it's probably the best sub £10 bottle of red wine I've possibly ever had.
Yeah, perfect. The Italians make very good table wine again. I've got
as opposed to shelf wine.
Yeah, wine, of course, intended to be drunk whilst sitting on a shelf.
You laugh. Try it.
Yeah, don't try that. I've got a Chardonnay from Burgundy.
Reinforce the shelf first.
Yeah. Well, it depends on your weight and the strength of the shelf.
If you only weigh a couple of stone, you can probably get away with it. Yeah, many variables.
You've probably got bigger problems then, though.
You do, yeah.
Yeah. Can I talk?
Do you use a ladder to get up to it?
I'm sick of talking about shelves. This is a big topic. This is a big issue podcast now, Shaun. We can't be talking about shelves, waffling on.
Okay, all right. Let's shelve that topic.
Yeah.
And
nice.
Talk about your Chardonnay from Burgundy. See, I was listening.
Oh, yeah. Chardonnay from Burgundy by Edward Delaunay. It's called Septembre.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very fancy.
You're drinking it in the wrong month then, aren't you?
I am, yeah. It's kind of disgusting behaviour by me there. It's good. It was about £15, something like that. 14 £14, I think. Yeah, it's nice. It's got slightly oaked, not very heavily, but it's nice and buttery. Got a nice sort
Has it got a buttery base?
a buttery base. There's a biscuity base. There's no biscuity base, unfortunately.
No, this is a shame.
Yeah, it's quite floral. It's got nice sort of hazelnut undertone to it. Yes, it's good. It's good stuff. I'd give it. You see, the number 7 lately it's sort of become a bit tired in my mind, and I don't want to do any sort of 7s anymore. I'm sort of shying away from them. But I think now maybe my bias is to not put a 7. But I'm thinking about a 7 so much with this wine that maybe I should just get rid of all my biases and put this wine at a 7 out of 10, objectively.
Your subjective decision is to objectively rank it as 7 out of 10.
My subjective objective rating is a 7 out of 10. Yeah.
Excellent.
And how drunk are you, Shaun?
Slightly more than usual, I'd say. We'll give it a 5.
5, okay.
5. Yeah.
I haven't eaten much today, so I'm feeling it a little bit as well. I reckon I'm I'm going to go with a 5 as well. I'm pretty uninspired today, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, thanks. So
talking about uninspiring stuff.
Oh,
should we
retire?
Should we get
to the adjoining room, to the room that we're in now, which also has a door that leads out onto a patio?
And we are definitely in the same room right now.
Yes.
Yes, let's go outside.
The poem patio.
And breathe the free air again.
My old friend.
And air. And air. Air is definitely relevant to our topic today. That's global warming, air, inextricably linked.
Yeah.
And I have, of course, produced a poem for today's occasion on the subject of global warming.
Is it horrifically long?
No, it's thankfully short.
Excellent. Right, continue.
Okay, we'll start. The world is going to end. We have done it ourselves. But it's not too late to change. We have some time to rearrange. Please replace your plastics with a green-friendly alternative. Please stop burning your coal. Isn't our longevity your goal? Please stop driving your cars. Walk to work for a change. Please put out those fires. Scientists are not liars. Killing this world with fumes, choking its life with our smoke, killing our world with pollution. Surely we can find another solution. Destroying the plants and trees, attacking the very air we breathe. Destroying our world, our home. We won't find another planet to roam. People keep saying the end is so far off, but it's approaching quicker every year. Have a thought about your children's lives. You may regret it when the time arrives. Thank you.
Wow. Very upbeat take on global warming there.
I'm always upbeat, you know me.
Yeah, that's true. No, it's a good poem, actually. I liked it.
Thank you.
Good. It was, what rhyming structure was that? Does it have one?
It is.
Was it? I think
ABCC.
ABCC was it? Okay, that was good. I liked it.
Yeah, I like to mix the rhyming up occasionally. Haven't used this one yet. No. I'll get really complex in a few weeks when I run out of other common rhyming structures. Yeah.
Well, I guess we can just move straight into our main topic then.
Mm.
So the way we're structuring this, I think, is that Shaun is going to be taking the anti-position, i.e. the position of a climate change denier.
Yes.
He's going to be
I am
playing
from
devil's
now
advocate.
on a moron. Sorry, I mean a climate change denier. Yes.
I didn't hear a difference between those two words. And I will be taking the position of a person who is not a climate change denier. I guess I'm a climate change acceptor. And so Shaun's going to lead off with some questions, I guess, and I'll try. I don't know. I'll try and we'll just have a chat about.
Okay, I thought we were doing it. Thought we were doing it the other way around, but sure. I think this makes more sense my way. Actually, no, I like it.
Yep.
So yeah, I to start with, I thought we'd just talk a bit about characteristics of scientific denial, not specifically climate change.
Because this has become a huge topic in our society lately, right? With vaccine denial, just general sort of science denial.
The more science seems to progress, the more people seem to deny it, don't they?
I think it's, in my opinion, I think the reason is it's just science has become much more complex in the last few years. And it's got to the point where somebody who isn't educated in science literally cannot understand the science behind a lot of things. And it's just really confusing to a lot of people. And
it is. And the issue is, again, the first on this list, in fact, which you can call FLICC, FLICC, the characteristics of science denial, are fake experts. This misinformation doesn't help the situation you were talking about. People don't know what to believe when you don't know enough about the situation. You have to believe someone, right? Or you'll never learn anything about the subject.
Yeah,
but when
this is why we like to make the announcement that we're not experts in anything. Please don't listen to us.
No, listen to us or don't. It's your decision. We're not telling you to believe anything we say. So yeah, you can call this small group of fake experts a magnified minority.
Because they shout the loudest.
But this is but this is also used by the deniers as well, who claim that who are the real experts are actually the fake experts, and they're spreading. So we can work both ways.
Right.
F for fake experts. The L is for logical fallacies, which encompasses.
It's cold outside today. How can global warming possibly be true? It's -1.
Yeah, I suppose that falls into red herring, which is the first of 4 subcategories, isn't it?
Okay.
There's also misrepresentation of data and facts, jumping to conclusions from said data.
I mean, there was that the famous thing of where climate change deniers would take this big graph that spanned a few decades and cut it down to about 5 years when warming was slowing down, right? And they would use that to prove their point. But if you zoom out, you see the entire graph. It's clearly an upward trend.
Yeah, and the last one in logical fallacies is false dichotomies, which is I think I've got this right in this instance, is that deniers like to suggest that like there is a false dichotomy in things, whereas they're viewing things that are actually connected as 2 separate things and saying that there's no overlap when there clearly are. They're saying just because this is happening doesn't mean this is happening because of it. I think that's the meaning of that in this situation.
Well, the meaning of false dichotomy normally is what is showing that there's two options and there's actually a third option that they're not talking about. I think.
Is it? Okay.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, so it's not. Yeah, well, we don't know. So
We don't know.
don't go away thinking we know exactly what we're talking about here. We realise how little we know when we delve into these subjects.
Yeah.
So that's the L of flick. I is impossible expectations. I think this refers to deniers being unrealistically expectant on getting the knowledge they want. They're like, oh, well, if you can't tell us this, then why should we trust you?
I see.
Expecting scientists to have all the answers, and when they don't, it's like, oh, why should we believe anything you say then?
Yeah, but the whole point of science is to have questions you don't know the answer
It
to,
is.
and to attempt
What
to
does
find
science?
the answer.
What does science mean?
Well, science means integrity, Shaun. Science means I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe I'll search it up if you keep talking.
When you said when you said it about questions, I had a feeling it was something to do with that in the whatever language it comes from. The C in flick is cherry picking, which is very important. They pick certain facts which support their argument and then forget all others. So if there's one trend in climate change that supports the idea that climate change isn't happening, then they'll latch on to that and only do studies on that and only promote that piece of knowledge. And then the other C, which is the other huge thing going around at the moment and seems to be escalating it for like the last 20 years, is conspiracy theories. Everyone loves a conspiracy theory, and they don't do much.
I love reading about conspiracy theories, I'll be
Yeah,
honest.
only ironically.
I just love getting into the minds of these people that come up with these theories. So they're just completely insane.
So that FLICC, the 5 characteristics of science denial. Did you find out what science means?
Yeah, there's no real consensus on what it really means, but I've got a definition, if that's any good.
Okay.
Which is the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behaviour of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment.
Observation and experiment. I guess.
Observation and experiment.
Yeah, it's difficult to experiment with climate change, isn't it? So it's mostly observation.
You can do some experiments. I suppose you could create some kind of climate, like a miniature climate, couldn't you? But the majority of experimenting has been done within computer models at the moment, I think.
That is a sort of experiment, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. So that's sort of what we're dealing with when we're talking about climate denial then.
Yes. Also a little bit about the psychology of climate change denial, because obviously there's a big difference between climate change deniers, I'm doing inverted commas with my hands, which you can't see, and the average person on the street who accepts that climate change is happening, but that is what's called a soft denier, because they don't actually think it's going to make any difference to them or anything in the near future, and that they can't do anything about it.
Right.
So this soft denial, and experts claim that this is mostly obviously because it's going to be in the near or distant future. And it can create a barrier to acceptance. Humans have difficulty processing things more than a few years ahead. So if people say nothing's happening for 30 years, people are like, oh, well, let's not worry then. It's a long time away. Anything could happen in the meantime.
Yeah. And this is... So it's one of the biggest concerns for all of science, really, at the moment, is climate change. And it has been for the last, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years or so. It's been a really huge issue. It's on, I think it is on the list of things that could extinct, the largest risks of humanity that we're facing currently, which is pretty bad.
It is, yes.
Yeah. So when we're talking about global warming or climate change, we're talking about ultimately possibly the extinction of all life on the planet.
Yeah.
But it can get a bit depressing to talk about, can't it?
It can. That's also on this article I'm reading. Again, avoiding depressing subjects and ones which create intense fears of fear and doom and helplessness. It is natural for humans to shy away from these things when they're spoken about. So if you do accept it's as bad as it is, it's only going to make you feel worse about the situation. So why do it?
Right. Yeah. It's a tough
And also
one.
this lack of an ability to actually help or affect it in any way, which I believe is called dissonance, I think, is because there's so little action you can take on a day-to-day basis, then humans naturally must believe that it actually can't be as pressing an issue as it's made out to be, such as knowing smoking is not healthy, yet you continue to smoke.
Yeah,
So,
but then with that, I can kind of get it. Maybe you look at your life, you think, okay, smoking is unhealthy for me, but do I want to die miserable, or should I just keep smoking? Is it really affecting anyone else? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But with global warming, I think that it's a bit more connected to the survival of the species as a whole, right? And I don't think this is something we're necessarily biologically programmed to think about, the survival of everyone. We just worry about the survival of ourselves and our sort of family units, right?
And only the immediate future, really.
Yeah, I mean, from an evolutionary standpoint, why do we care? We're going to die soon. But I think it's an important topic to talk about, because if we die without having tried, at least tried to stop this sort of incoming disaster, the next generation, even if they try, are going to have a much reduced chance of doing anything about it, right?
Yeah.
And that's not particularly fair.
It isn't. As of course I said in my poem.
Yeah, I remember that poem word for word.
Yeah. Have a thought about your children's lives. You may regret it when the time arrives.
Yeah.
So yeah, the last thing I want to say about the psychology is it's the same thing as when, people know that driving your car too much, consuming meat, flying in aeroplanes are all causing climate change, but there are no replacements currently available easily and cheaply in our society. So they feel impotent to actually make a change on a personal level. So you stop paying attention to stuff you don't think there are any easy solutions to.
Sure. But the counterpoint to that would be the usual counterpoint, I guess, is it's become a bit of a cliche, but if everyone thinks that, then nothing will get done, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah. Whereas I think all you can do as an individual is what you can do. I think you need to stop worrying about what everyone else is doing. The big companies are either going to help or not, and you can't really impact what they do, particularly. I think if you take it on an individual level, you'll find things in your life that you could change that won't impact your life that much. Maybe just pay a slight bit more attention when you're recycling, for instance. And if everyone does that, it's going to add up, isn't it? It's going to make some degree of difference, no matter how small.
Yeah. So now I'm going to move on to some statements, and I'm going to see if you can answer them.
Yeah, probably not.
Okay.
Let's find out.
We'll see. We'll see, won't we?
I'll put my largest pair of glasses on for this. I don't even wear glasses, but
okay. So I am now Mr. Climate Denier, Mr. CD. So I'm going to come up to you and say,
Mr. CD.
Oh, what's the problem with climate? He's seedy. What's the problem with climate change? We're getting warmer weather. What's so bad about warmer weather? The planet heating up. I thought warmer weather's good. It grows crops and stuff, doesn't it?
Sure, but you're missing the point, Mr. CD. It doesn't matter about the actual temperature. I don't think that matters. It's more about the rate of change of temperature that we're seeing. The actual temperature of the Earth doesn't matter too much beyond the point that it's too hot that we can't survive, or it's too cold that we can't survive, right? The point that matters is how quickly we're getting from where we are now to too hot to survive. And we just need to slow the growth down. Otherwise, it will get to a point eventually where it's so hot we can't survive, basically. There's too much carbon dioxide in the air, we can't survive.
That won't be what would be the main issue first, though, right? There'd be so much other things.
Oh, sure. I mean, there'd be
what's the
shrinkage
first thing
of farmable land, I guess.
What's the first thing that's going to happen when the temperature rises by 2 degrees, let's say?
By 2 degrees, it'd be water level rising, a shrinkage of land, something like that.
Okay.
More pressure on countries. There'd be potential wars breaking out, I suppose, over the resources.
Fair enough. Yeah, no. I'm not disagreeing with you. Mr. CD was, but maybe you've convinced him, or maybe not, because I feel like Mr. CD is asking another question through me, and he's saying,
"Oh, are you channeling him now? Are you like some kind of climate change denial medium?"
Yeah, I'm the conduit for Mr. CD.
Could you talk in Mr. CD's voice, maybe? I mean, that might help.
I feel like, although it might be amusing, it may also be offensive. It may suggest that the people with whatever accent I used,
which is always Australian. That's your only accent.
I can speak in other accents other than Australian, mate.
Oh, South African,
yeah. Anyway, we're getting off topic. This is serious. Stop making this.
Sorry. It's a big issue podcast now, sure.
But I'm pretty sure that glaciers aren't melting, and Antarctic sea ice is actually increasing.
No.
No.
I don't think so. I mean, what do you mean? What, like, ice is growing where? What's happening?
Well, I can answer this for you.
Okay.
He's gone now. I'm back to myself.
Right.
Yeah, this is something that's
hard to tell without the accent.
Fine. it's you've made me completely lose my train of thought now.
Ice growing.
This is a thought, an argument that people use, skeptics and deniers use, because apparently the ice is increasing in the middle of the Antarctic.
Right.
But like the North Pole ice, the Arctic Circle ice. God, we're so educated on this topic.
Yeah.
That is melting, but apparently, due to some sciencey things, because
sciencey things,
CO2 is having a disproportionately large effect in the north of the planet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is one of the things, isn't it, with climate change, is that it happens over such a vast scale that it affects some parts of the world vastly more than it affects others, and I think a lot of climate change denial comes from focusing too much on one area, usually sort of first world areas. And they kind of ignore, because global warming is like a planet-wide kind of model, right? So you have to take the entire planet into account, otherwise it doesn't really make any sense. You can't focus on one area. It's global warming. It's not America warming. If that makes sense. So it's actually, the ice is expanding in some areas but melting in others, basically.
Yeah, in the southern hemisphere, it's because there's a lot more land in the northern hemisphere, and the ocean's thermal inertia and ability to delay changes in temperature it is because of something called a circumpolar current, which acts as a buffer, preventing warm water from the tropics transporting heat to the South Pole. And so it's because the South Pole is Antarctica is surrounded by water, whereas there's lots of land mass near the north of the planet.
So it's about ocean currents, basically,
which doesn't act as a buffer. So it's actually staying. There's more and more ice in the South Pole every year. But does it? And people are saying, "Oh, this balances out," but it doesn't. If you add up everything that's been gained and lost, far more is being lost in the Arctic, global glacier mass, permafrost, the Greenland ice sheet. These all add up to far more than the increase in sea ice in the Antarctic. Yes.
Right.
Again, this is an example of the cherry picking the facts. You pick one place on the planet where the opposite of global warming is happening and use it.
Sure. Yeah.
As an excuse.
That's interesting. That's something I wasn't aware of.
No, neither was I. Mr. CD clearly was, though.
Yeah.
He clearly was. And you can say this about there's some very let's have a slightly sillier one. But Vineland was full of grapes. When the Vikings found Newfoundland.
Okay.
Yeah. It was in the medieval warm period, and
sure.
They went there and found loads of grapes.
Yeah. So the medieval warm period, right? This is something I think a lot of them like to bring up, right?
Yeah.
It was warm in Europe, right? Not that warm elsewhere, I believe. From what I remember of my limited training. Also, I don't think the standards for growing grapes was that high back then. I think think they basically just grew grapes wherever, because as we were talking about in our wine history podcast, it was a lot cheaper to just grow grapes on the ground wherever you were rather than importing them. They weren't that fussy, I'll be honest. I mean, nowadays we grow grapes in England, but only certain grapes. We're not brave enough to start growing, like Cabernet Sauvignon or anything in our cold climate. But having said that, global warming has a huge impact in the winemaking world, and conventional wisdom puts the area you can grow grapes between a certain latitude and a certain southern latitude, but that's widening every year. But yeah, I don't think that we can really take medieval accounts that aren't really even confirmed. I don't believe they're just sort of whatever was written down during that time period. Are we really going to listen to Viking writings?
Well, we don't even know where it was. Some experts say it was actually Florida they went to and not Newfoundland.
Right.
So there's very little evidence on the ground. A lot of the stuff they have found, other historians have refuted as no, this is just Native American carvings. Or
grapes were native to that region. I mean, at the end of the day, I think this boils down to: are we gonna pay attention to medieval people, or are we going to pay attention to modern day scientists, basically, that actually know what they're talking about?
But no, I mostly brought this up because to talk about the medieval warm period and then like the Little Ice Age, because climate change deniers are saying that this is just a peak that's going to go back down naturally again.
So we're in an ice age now, right?
I have no idea.
I believe we're in an interglacial period of an ice age. So if you don't know, ice ages dip between glacial periods and interglacial periods, where they get colder and warmer, basically. We're in an ice age now. I believe we're in the interglacial period of an ice age. And we're due, I believe, we're pretty much due to go into the glacial period at any point. So,
from my very, very limited knowledge of this, I'm pretty sure it's any point in the next 10,000 years.
Yeah, like really, that's like pretty close on a geographical scale.
Yes, but it's not soon enough to save us from climate change.
No. But 10,000 years is so little time that even if it started happening right now, that wouldn't be particularly surprising. Like being 10,000 years out on the prediction would be kind of like, that's pretty acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the whole medieval thing. Also with the medieval thing, I believe I'm not entirely sure on this, but wasn't it only really warm in Europe?
I have no idea, but again, possibly something to do with that warm current in the Atlantic.
Maybe.
What warms bits of Europe up. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, what next? Oh yes, of course. But surely natural emissions are dwarfing human emissions, right?
What natural emissions?
Well, apparently 150 billion tons of carbon go into the atmosphere from natural processes every year. This
is like volcanoes or forest fires, or
I don't know, but apparently this is 30 times the amount that humans emit. But what's the difference?
Well, the human emission is enormous as well, presumably, and that's just
it's about 5 billion tons.
5 billion tons compared to 30 billion, was it?
No, 145 billion.
145 billion versus
the
5 billion.
Yeah.
Well, the 5 billion is still just additional carbon, right, on top of whatever has been pumped out for the past few 100 million years, presumably. I don't know.
I do have the answer here, by the way, and I don't think you're heading towards it.
Am I not?
No. It's because the natural carbon cycle works evenly. For every ton of carbon that goes into the atmosphere, a ton is taken out as well.
Well, it's in equilibrium.
Yes. So even though ours is quite small compared to the overall amount, ours is tipping the balance because we don't take any out. We only put 5 billion extra tons in.
Okay.
So although nature puts 30 times as much out, they take almost exactly the same amount back.
Wow.
Not
I
sure
wonder
how
what those
this
processes are.
Well, from nature.
Well, plants, yeah.
Yeah, I think. I'd imagine plant life is most of it. I don't know how.
Plants love carbon dioxide, Shaun.
They breathe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But apparently, since we began burning fossil fuels, roughly 150 years ago, is when it really took off. The atmospheric concentration that had been stable for several thousand years, possibly even the last 10,000 years, we can tell the history of the carbon cycle in the atmosphere somehow.
It's something to do with trees. I think they can look at trees and they can see how much carbon they take in, or something like that. Again, it's been a few years since I had any formal training on this.
Yeah, but there's now, after sort of 10,000 years of a stable, it's risen 35% in the last 150.
It's been enormous since the sort of mid 1800s, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I think it was 1850 was like the year when it all kicked off, right? Pretty much. Or somewhere near then.
Well, factories had been started 100 years before that, but I think they only started making an impact and becoming global around that period. Yeah. And obviously it's just increased exponentially since it hasn't slowed down.
No, well, the population of the world increases, so the production needs to increase similarly. Yeah. It's bad times.
It is a bit. But we're trying to stay positive, aren't we?
I'm trying,
Are we?
Shaun. I'm trying.
It's difficult.
I'm slipping. Help.
What about... Oh, I've got you. Sit back up in your chair.
Okay. Well, I can't do that with you. Would be able to hear me through the mic.
What about the sun's effect on all this? Surely it's just temporary changes in solar radiation are what are causing increase in temperature.
Well, I think large solar flares can affect the temperature on the planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not really by enough. And it's not really the sun that affects it, it's whether the sun's powerful rays can escape once they've hit the sun, right? The problem is that once they hit the Earth and they're rebounding back into space, they're getting caught by these molecules that we call I can't remember what we call them. It's a very common word. Something gases.
Greenhouse gases.
Greenhouse gases, right? Thank you, Shaun. They get caught by greenhouse gases like methane or carbon dioxide or water vapor. Which just grab that thermal energy, and then they emit infrared radiation around them, essentially trapping the sort of heat within the atmosphere of the Earth for longer than it should be there. So I think the issue isn't really whether or not sun's rays hit the Earth. It's whether or not they can escape again. And a huge solar flare will be more impactful upon Earth the more greenhouse gases are in the atmosphere, right?
I believe so. But
Have I got one
apparently,
right?
I'm not sure. Apparently, that there's been no increase in solar irradiance since 1940. So if it was the
Yeah.
case that the sun is heating up, then
Well, the whole sun can't heat up
no.
now. It can only get cooler. But the
Yeah.
the violent expulsions of these solar flares happen all the time. But for one to be large enough to make a noticeable impact on the Earth, that's probably quite a rare event.
Apparently, between about 1900 and 1940, there was a slight increase in temperature due to the sun's activity. Apparently,
Right? Yeah, it can happen.
but a very small amount, like a tenth of a degree or something. Not
Yeah.
the levels we're approaching now.
Yeah. What are we approaching? Almost 1 degree, is it?
Yeah, I thought we'd passed 1 degree, but I think obviously it's difficult because that's global average temperature, isn't it? Obviously, in
Yeah.
different places, in some it has risen more
By
than others.
50 degrees. No, not quite. And we are talking about degrees Celsius.
We are,
because
yes.
we are British.
We're a couple of those Brits.
In case somebody didn't notice.
Yeah, I forget sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, just listen to some of the rubbish we talk about. I should give it away.
Oh, right. So people say people don't understand how this is predicted. Like a skeptic might say something like, we can't even predict the weather next week. So how can we predict a climate model 100 years from now?
Sure. So, the weather is really difficult to predict. It requires the solving many hundreds of thousands or maybe millions. I'm not sure of differential equations very, very quickly. Obviously, you have to do it within a day, otherwise the prediction is useless.
Yeah.
So you're just predicting the past, and that's no good to anyone. Whereas I think global warming prediction is actually a lot simpler, because once we understood that global warming can basically be boiled down to, and this is a simplification, but in science and in maths, simplifications are made all the time. You could simplify the Earth's atmosphere as having a level of carbon dioxide, right? And once you can prove that carbon dioxide is inextricably linked to temperature rise, which has been shown, we can then just basically model the atmosphere as how much carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere. And then the model is fairly simple. It's just how much carbon dioxide is there now, how much carbon dioxide will be emitted in the future. And then we can kind of infer a temperature value from that, I think, is sort of the general idea of it.
Okay.
No?
Yeah, I don't know. I have to take your word for it. I have no idea how they get these models, but you believe them to be accurate, right?
Yeah, I think they're easier to figure out than the weather.
And I guess we do have over 100 years of
I mean,
temperature records and
I mean, if
like
you go into sort of some of the weird sort of carbon dating things that they do, we have fairly accurate records that we can track back millions of years, even, of temperature.
Okay.
And weather is a completely different beast, because it's all about wind, really. It's like directions of wind and that just gets messy because wind kind of just goes wherever it wants, almost. I mean, not really, but seemingly. From a labourer's perspective, I mean, if I walk out, I've got no idea which way the wind's going to be blowing. Do you?
No.
No.
I don't even know what way I'm facing most of the time, so that would be quite
exactly.
quite tricky.
Yeah. I think that's it's kind of disingenuous to suggest that because we can't do one thing, we must not be able to do another thing. I don't think the two things are that related, really.
Okay. So maybe we should talk a bit about what actually does cause global warming then. Do you have any facts or figures about this?
Well, it's greenhouse gases mainly, I believe.
I mean, what human activities
Oh, I see.
cause it? What is the biggest thing humanity needs to change to? Yeah.
So energy is like the leading greenhouse gas emissions by man. 72% of all greenhouse gas emissions are there to create energy in some way.
So this is mostly electricity, is it? We're talking about
31% of all energy, so greenhouse gas emissions, right, globally, 72% are made to create energy. 31% of the energy created is used to create electricity or heat.
What other sorts of energy are created?
So 15% is transportation. We've got 12% is manufacturing and construction. 8% other, and 5% fugitive emissions. I don't know what that means.
Neither do I.
Fugitive emissions. They sound naughty, don't they?
They do, yeah. You deserve a spanking.
Yeah, they really do. So 72% for energy is a lot, right?
Yeah.
And this is like the main struggle, I suppose. Like, how do we cut down on our electricity, heat, generation, or transportation needs?
So is that 72% include transportation?
Yeah, so this is 72% total. Yeah.
So that's including petrol.
Yeah.
And okay, right.
The rest of it, shall I say, the rest of the greenhouse gas emissions are the next largest, apart from the 72% energy, is 11%, and that's agriculture. And then we have at 6% land use change or forestry.
Okay.
So cutting down trees, basically, and then industrial processes. So I guess that's just the byproducts from running factories and things like that. They don't go towards making energy; they're just waste, I assume.
So basically, we, the human race, not me and you, need to find alternative modes of creating energy, which of course we are doing.
We are, and there's been a tremendous effort towards moving away from fossil fuel generation of energy towards more environmentally friendly methods like solar or wind, which is good.
If you look at the last 10 years, a lot of countries have made a very large step towards that.
In fact, the UK no longer uses any coal to generate
coal.
energy. That's a fairly recent change, I believe, with 0% coal generation in the UK, and that's pretty encouraging. But there's still obviously a long way to go if we have 72% here. I mean, I have a list of greenhouse gas emissions per capita, if you wanted to hear that.
Yeah.
So in first is the US with 18 or 19, I think it's 19 tons of carbon dioxide per person they emit. And then in Russia, about 15 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per person. And in Japan, almost 10 tons. The European countries are sitting at about 8 tons. China about 8 tons as well.
I believe as a total of emissions, China and the US add up to almost 50%.
Yeah, but per capita, China seems to use a lot less. So there's got to be a question at some point of what are these countries that are emitting so many more tons of carbon per person? The US using 19 tons per person almost, compared to the EU's 8 tons. How are they using 10 tons more per person?
Well, they're not using it per person, are they? That's a bit wrong to say that. It's because there's far more industry in those countries that use more have more industry per amount of people they have.
Sure, yeah, I suppose so.
They're not using it on the person
But
themselves.
they're not using it personally, no.
No, they're not doing stuff deliberately and efficiently.
No. The Americans don't go around driving massive truck.
Yeah, maybe.
No, I know what you mean. They're not like, they're not the stereotypical Americans driving around in huge trucks smoking cigars, whilst farting a lot.
Yeah. Methane counts to about 10% of greenhouse gases. Most of that comes from agriculture.
Yep. So animal agriculture is another big topic in carbon dioxide or in greenhouse gas emission, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those are the two main sort of things that we need to worry about: is energy production and agriculture. Unfortunately, a large portion of the world is still very, very poor, and we should do you think that possibly creating wealth in these much, much poorer regions of the world could in some way help the environment in the long run?
No, I think it would do the opposite.
I think it would do the opposite.
I do, yes. If as it is to say, wealth is injected into these poorer parts of the world, they are only going to, this is my opinion, this isn't the opinion of anyone else, but I think they will just build more coal factories to try and increase their country's position in the world and how much of an economic power they are. They're not going to say, oh, we're going to spend all of this on solar energy.
No, I mean, we saw this in China, right? We've seen this in India to some extent. Sort of rapid population explosions followed by huge industrial sort of increase as well, right?
Yeah.
But nowadays, solar energy is almost, I believe, don't quote me on this, solar energy is almost cheaper than creating energy using fossil fuels now.
It may well be. I don't know.
If that overtakes the production of fuel, if solar suddenly becomes the cheapest option.
It is cheaper per, let's say, kilowatt of energy, but it's the startup costs.
Yeah.
And the fact you already have all the infrastructure in place with the coal power plants and the nuclear power plants. And it'd be a lot of wasted money just to stop using them and have to suddenly transform it all.
It's funny you said nuclear power. Actually, where do you lie on nuclear power? Personally, I'm quite for nuclear power. It's clean.
I think the disadvantages and dangers of it are worth it compared to the reduction in emissions per unit of energy compared to other types of
Absolutely.
energy production.
And if scientists can somehow figure out a way to do fusion, to get fusion power plants up and running, then the efficiency will only increase from there.
But I think it's important to say at this point, for those of you who don't know, is that global emissions are still increasing. Just because we're aware of this and we're making some steps, it's still going up every year. Global warming has been known about since the 70s, really.
Yes.
Some people, Victorians, were thinking about global warming stuff, but it's really been concrete evidence for getting on for 50 years now. And in that time, we've almost doubled our carbon emissions in the last 50 years. So we're still increasing.
So Shaun, very controversial topic here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are very controversial on the Henka boys. We keep saying that. Maybe one day we'll become controversial.
We do our best.
We do our best. Population control, then. Good idea? Bad ideas? Do you think maybe governments around the world should start doing China-esque cracking down on how many children you should be allowed to have?
Yes, I don't see why not. So obviously, it is a difficult question, because
it's sort of like taking away a freedom that the human race has had since its inception, right?
If you're not free to reproduce as much as you like,
you're not in control of your own body in a weird way.
Yes, but on a grander scheme of things, the planet has too many people. It's certainly got enough. So
sure, but
it's
been proven though that population plateaus, right, within countries. If population gets really, really high, it plateaus eventually, and this will happen in third world countries as well. Particularly, I think in India, where when it was really, really poor region, the population was increasing, but I believe it started to plateau now, and that happens sort of generally when a country acquires sort of education, I guess. So, do you not think that maybe time could solve these problems?
It's only going to increase the problem. We're at 8 billion now, right? By the time every country plateaus, what are we going to be on? 25 billion, 30 billion? We've already got far too many people to say we're allowed to triple it or quadruple it, and that's fine. Because to feed 4 times as many people, you're going to need 4 times as much energy. You're going to need 4 times as much agriculture, and this is just going to increase the emissions.
Yeah, it will. So, what about moving to a different planet?
Oh, I think we're moving into the realms of sci-fi a bit too much, aren't we?
I don't know. I don't think we're that far away from being able to move.
Move a few people
to say the moon or Mars to set up a base. The question is, would it be? Well, I think there's 2 questions. Is it going to be fast enough, and are we willing to sacrifice our planet for the continued sort of indulgences, I suppose, of the human race?
No,
I don't know.
Definitely not.
I have conflicted feelings.
Okay.
Because on the one hand, right, if we could continue living as we always have done, and I think we've come sort of to the conclusion, Shaun, that living as we are doing now and just continuing to increase population while living as we have been for the past few years is not sustainable. Do you think we've reached that point?
We have, yes.
I think that idea of continuing that, but just moving on to different planets and sort of taking over the entire solar system potentially is quite an alluring option.
Okay.
But it's, again, if we're looking really far into the future, even that's not going to be sustainable, right? We need to figure out a fix to this on Earth before we do anything like that.
Well, I think the only fix is population control.
The only fast fix.
No, look.
I think with time, and with all of, if 100% of energy could be converted into clean energy, that would do a lot. That would do a lot of help. And then we'd have to go down the rest of the list, right? And then we'd start with agriculture and then keep going down. But I think given time, it could be solved. But I don't think we have that much time.
But surely you can't solve an exponentially growing population.
I don't. Again, don't quote me on this, but I think it can be mathematically proven that the exponential growth of the planet wouldn't continue. It would stop at some point. It would plateau off and would end at a certain population.
That's only because we run out of food, and then people die.
I don't know. I don't know what the reason is.
You can't have more people on the planet than the planet's food production is capable of.
That's true. Yeah.
Even if you miraculously increase that food production by 1,000%, if the population still keeps growing, it will eventually exceed that too, won't it?
Yeah. I mean, population control is going to get people's backs up, right?
It is. And the problem is people are living longer and less people are dying.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's a problem.
It's not just people breeding more.
But furthermore, there's so many children in the adoption, in the orphanages, right?
Right.
And a lot of them just never get adopted, do they? They just sort of grow up in orphanages and sort of end up in the world. I mean, maybe population control could work. You could have one child per family kind of thing, and then you're allowed, if you want more children after that one biological child of yours, you can adopt a child.
It's not a bad idea.
There's definitely not a shortage of
well, I don't think we need to be a draconian one child. If everyone's allowed
but
then it will stay stable, and it doesn't account for people that don't have children. So
it would be less than stable because some of the parents would die of something, car crashes or something.
Yeah, so it would decrease very slowly though, but it would be roughly stable, I think.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see figures to see if three children per family would actually stabilize population. I don't know. Depends on the rate of death, I suppose. I don't know.
But I think we're getting very off topic, and we could probably do a whole other podcast with a bit more research and some more facts and figures at hand when it comes to talking about population control and population projections.
We'll do one on forced sterilization shortly, yeah.
We will, yes. Look out for that.
Yeah.
So we go even more depressing than I thought we were going to get earlier. So I think we should call it an end there. I hope we've given you some new
Something
ideas
to think about.
Yeah,
We've certainly given you no facts, really. I hope,
given you a few facts, but yeah, we're just trying to spread information, basically.
we talk about this sort of thing quite often, don't we, Shaun? And
We
just
do.
thought we'd have kind of one of our usual conversations, but whilst recording it, basically. And yeah. I mean, let us know if you have any thoughts, listeners.
Any thoughts at all?
Yeah, but particularly about global warming, I'd be interested to hear a different opinion on it.
Because whatever the subject you're talking about, it is very easy to get caught up in the sort of mindset you're in and the people you talk to, especially if you share the same mindset. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy if you only talk.
Yeah. It's an echo chamber, right?
Yeah, within the same circles and read the same things. It's going to become more and more reinforced, whether it's correct or not.
Yeah, we've talked complete bollocks for the past however long.
And humans are very good at tricking themselves into believing things. So it's good to have a wide range of sources to get your information from. And hopefully we are becoming one of them for you. So let's lighten things up. I want to hear something absolutely incredible, James.
Well, you've come to the wrong place, Shaun. Right, the incredible fact of the day today. I'm not sure it's that incredible. And it may not be a fact. I've looked into this. There's dispute.
Okay.
But I'm going
to dispute.
Include it as an incredible fact of the day because basically it's on Wikipedia and it hasn't been deleted yet.
Okay.
And that's basically good enough for me. Chefs. What do you know about chefs?
Oh, what don't I know about chefs?
Well, give me a rundown of the things that they normally wear.
Socks.
Yeah.
Pants, underwear.
Not relevant.
Trousers.
Not relevant.
Shoes, preferably non-slip, because kitchens can be a dangerous environment.
That's true, yeah. Lots of sauce on the floor. No, not relevant, though.
No, not relevant. One of those sort of weird double-fronted white jacket things.
Yeah, that's not particularly relevant.
Yeah, I'm getting there. They also wear gloves sometimes for hygiene reasons when chopping.
Yeah, I mean,
foods.
I think 1920 chef probably not wearing gloves at that point.
But I know you're talking about hats, right?
Hats.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right. What's going on with that chef hat, huh? That's pretty crazy. Why are they wearing that?
It is pretty crazy. It's a fashion statement, isn't it?
No.
No?
No. So the hat is called a toque. I think it's pronounced.
A toque.
Toque.
Okay.
It's a hat that chefs wear. It dates back to the 16th century, Shaun. Of different heights of the hat could be an indication of a rank within a kitchen, but not always. But what I really wanted to talk about was the folds in the hat. You know, like they're always folded. Do you know how many folds there are in a chef's hat?
Oh, I reckon there's about 15.
No, there's 100.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a weird reason for that. And the reason is that the folds in the chef's toque are said to represent the many ways a chef knows to cook eggs. So chefs are supposed to know apparently 100 ways to cook eggs.
Okay.
Yeah. That's, I mean, again, not sure this is true. It sounds untrue. But I've been reading about it everywhere. It seems like, I don't know, it seems to be an accepted fact, but I still don't quite believe it. I guess in the same way that you were playing the part of a climate change denier earlier, I'm a talk denier. I'm not sure about it.
Yeah, yes. It does seem
Unlikely. Yeah.
unlikely, yeah. But also quite fun.
It was quite fun, wasn't it? Sort of lighten the mood a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was borderline incredible.
That's what I aim for.
Hmm? Yeah, aim for the top.
Oh yeah, always. Yeah.
Reach
Of
for the
course,
stars.
we're coming up to our 10th episode, and there will be, as is, I'm creating a new tradition, Shaun.
Oh,
Every
okay.
10th episode, or not every 10th, every milestone we hit, major milestone, there will be an incredible fact about armadillos.
Ah, this is what we've all been waiting for.
Yeah. Well, I'm keeping them tightly tucked away under my talk.
Which definitely needs to come into the fashion world as an accessory for everyone.
Or just whip your talk out. Yeah.
Yes.
There's no confusion that could arise from that.
Whipping your talk out. No.
I always whip my talk out in the kitchen.
And
Yeah,
other rooms.
That was literally it. That was the fact. That was it. Yeah.
Well, thanks for that. I've already forgotten about global warming, so it's not going to happen. We'd like to thank you for tuning in, wouldn't we, James?
Yep.
Thank them.
Thank you.
There we go. And we'd love you to get in touch. You can find us at all the usual places, Facebook, Twitter, which is not neglected at all. We use it frequently.
There's a few cobwebs.
You can also find us on YouTube, where you can watch exciting videos with our logo on and nothing else.
Yes.
Please contact us on any of these. Drop us a message about...
Especially if you're either a chef or an environmental scientist. Because we'd like to know about global warming and tox.
Definitely. Let us know what you want us to talk about in the future. Let us know if you want to be on the show. Let us know if you want us to stop recording this. Any of these things, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
So it's goodbye from Shaun. Bye. And James, say goodbye too.
You should have done that the other way around, but yeah, goodbye.
Yeah.